On a cold December day in 1940, specifically the 12th of that month, senior Wehrmacht officers gathered at their headquarters in Zossen, Germany, to review what they considered definitive intelligence about American industrial capabilities. Colonel Walter Warlimont, serving as Deputy Chief of Operations, delivered an assessment that seemed to confirm every preconception the German High Command held about the United States. The Americans, according to their extensive intelligence network, simply didn't possess the industrial foundation necessary for modern warfare. Their factories churned out automobiles and refrigerators, not tanks and aircraft. Their workforce had never manufactured weapons on any significant scale. Perhaps most tellingly, the contingency plans American strategists had developed included the possibility of recruiting women into factory positions, which German analysts interpreted as a desperate acknowledgement of insufficient manpower rather than any kind of strategic advantage. The numbers backing up this assessment appeared irrefutable. American aircraft factories were producing roughly 300 planes each month. Tank production barely existed as more than experimental prototypes. Military vehicle manufacturing was effectively non-existent. The standing American army contained fewer than 300,000 soldiers, ranking 17th globally in total size, actually smaller than Romania's military forces. These weren't estimates or propaganda figures, but verified facts that German intelligence had painstakingly documented. Every strategic calculation being made in Berlin rested on this foundation of data, and that data suggested America posed no immediate threat to German plans for continental domination. What those assembled officers couldn't possibly grasp was that 4,500 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, a transformation was already beginning that would ultimately bury the entire Wehrmacht under quantities of military equipment beyond anything European powers had ever conceived possible. Those American women the intelligence reports dismissed as evidence of weakness would soon be manufacturing more war material every 30 days than German factories could produce in 90. The consumer goods factories that seemed so inappropriate for military production would orchestrate the single largest industrial mobilization in human history. Within 2 years, German intelligence officers would be receiving production reports from America that contradicted everything they thought they understood about manufacturing capacity. The mobilization of millions of American women into precision manufacturing roles would prove more destructive to Nazi Germany than any individual military campaign. German strategic planning throughout 1940 relied heavily on what appeared to be solid intelligence about American capabilities. The Wehrmacht's analytical division had access to accurate information. American aircraft production genuinely averaged 300 units monthly during this period. Tank manufacturing remained in developmental stages. Military truck production was minimal. The United States Army comprised roughly 269,000 soldiers equipped with weapons and equipment that European military observers considered outdated. None of these assessments were incorrect based on 1940 realities. Strategic planning documents preserved in the Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv demonstrate how systematically German analysts approached the question of American industrial potential. Wehrmacht economists calculated conversion timelines based on their own experience, estimating that transforming American consumer production facilities into military manufacturing would require between 3 and 5 years minimum. They documented that American factories operated single 8-hour shifts rather than the round-the-clock production schedules European facilities maintained. American workers expected weekends free from work. Labor unions had established rules that restricted rapid changes to production methods. The American contingency planning documents that mentioned women entering factory work seemed to German observers like an admission that the United States lacked sufficient male workers for serious industrial expansion. The German General Staff's conclusions reflected actual European experience with industrial mobilization. German rearmament had begun secretly in 1933, and despite 6 full years of preparation, they had only recently achieved significant military production capacity. France's attempted industrial mobilization between 1939 and 1940 had failed spectacularly, contributing to their rapid defeat. Britain, despite being at war for 18 months, was still producing military equipment in relatively limited quantities. These precedents shaped every assumption German planners made about what America might accomplish. The fundamental error was that German analysts were measuring American potential against European limitations and experiences. They couldn't conceptualize an industrial system capable of training millions of workers in mere weeks rather than years. They couldn't imagine building massive factory complexes from empty agricultural land in months rather than years. They couldn't conceive of motivating workers through patriotic volunteerism to the same degree that German workers were driven by state coercion. Most critically, they simply couldn't envision a scenario where American women without any industrial background would master precision manufacturing techniques faster and more effectively than trained German craftsmen. The collapse of France in May 1940 transformed American industrial planning overnight. As France fell and Britain found itself isolated against Nazi Germany, American industrial leaders began serious preparation for possible war involvement. President Roosevelt's public call for 50,000 aircraft annually triggered revolutionary changes throughout American manufacturing sectors. William Knudsen, who had been serving as president of General Motors, accepted appointment as director of the Office of Production Management. His initial actions fundamentally revolutionized American industrial culture in ways that would have been inconceivable in Germany. Direct competitors including Ford, Chrysler, Packard and Studebaker agreed to share proprietary trade secrets, manufacturing methods and specialized tooling. In Germany, where industrial giants jealously protected every competitive advantage, such comprehensive cooperation between rivals was simply impossible to imagine. The automotive industry began conversion planning a full 18 months before Pearl Harbor brought America formally into the war. Detroit executives made decisions during June 1940 that would ultimately transform modern warfare. They standardized component parts across competing companies. They agreed to share specialized manufacturing equipment. They established cross-training programs for workers. Henry Ford, initially extremely reluctant to produce aircraft engines, reversed his position entirely and declared his company would learn whatever it didn't currently know. Simultaneously with these industrial preparations, a social revolution was quietly beginning across America. Women were enrolling themselves in welding courses, blueprint reading classes, and precision measurement training entirely on their own initiative, without any government programs or recruitment campaigns encouraging them. By September 1940, thousands of women were preparing themselves for industrial work that didn't yet officially exist. Training schools reported unprecedented enrollment numbers from female students. The Bullard Havens Technical School in Connecticut, which had maintained a strict males-only admission policy throughout its existence, suddenly found itself receiving hundreds of applications from women. Similar patterns emerged at technical schools nationwide, as women anticipated workforce needs months before any formal recognition of those needs. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, transformed American society with stunning speed. The attack unleashed industrial mobilization that exceeded every projection anyone had made. Within 48 hours, employment offices throughout the nation were overwhelmed with volunteers, and the vast majority of these volunteers were women. The transformation's speed is perfectly exemplified by what happened at Boeing's Seattle plant. On December 6, 1941, Boeing employed roughly 8,000 workers, mostly male. By January 1, 1942, employment had doubled with women comprising most of the new hires. By June 1943, Boeing would be employing 45,000 workers with women performing the majority of assembly operations. German intelligence services, monitoring American mobilization efforts through neutral country sources, initially dismissed the reported production targets as obvious propaganda. The United States announced plans to produce 60,000 aircraft during 1942 and 125,000 in 1943. German analysts, whose entire nation was producing 12,000 aircraft annually, declared these figures must be deliberate exaggerations designed to intimidate enemies. What German analysts fundamentally didn't understand was the revolution occurring in American industrial engineering. Frederick Taylor's scientific management principles, which had been refined by Charles Sorensen at Ford Motor Company, enabled breaking complex manufacturing processes into simple, repeatable individual tasks. Instead of training workers to build complete components from start to finish, American factories trained them for highly specific operations. An individual woman might learn to drill 6 precise holes in a particular location. Another might learn to install specific rivets. Another might attach particular cables. Working together in coordinated teams, hundreds of workers performing specific tasks could complete dozens of aircraft in the time European craftsmen needed to build one. By March 1942, American factories were achieving production rates that fundamentally challenged German comprehension. The Willow Run plant, which hadn't even existed 12 months earlier, was nearing completion on 3.5 million square feet of former Michigan farmland. Designed to employ 42,000 workers producing B-24 bombers, it would become the world's largest factory contained under a single roof. German intelligence assessments from spring 1942 demonstrate systematic rejection of American production claims. Wehrmacht production experts calculated that producing a single 4-engine bomber required a minimum of 4,000 skilled man-hours. American claims that they would eventually achieve 63-minute production intervals were dismissed as mathematically impossible. At Willow Run, however, revolutionary production methods were achieving efficiency levels unprecedented in manufacturing history. The factory operated as one massive assembly line, with bombers physically moving through 1,600 distinct workstations. Women performed most operations including drilling, riveting, welding, and electrical installation. Using pneumatic tools that simply weren't available in German factories, they completed assemblies in minutes that required hours using traditional hand methods. Rose Will Monroe, working at Willow Run, became one of several women whose image inspired the famous Rosie the Riveter cultural icon. Operating pneumatic riveters, she and her teammates completed fuselage sections in 45 minutes that German workers needed 8 hours to finish using conventional techniques. By April 1944, Willow Run was completing one complete B-24 bomber every 63 minutes during peak production periods. The plant would ultimately produce 8,685 B-24 bombers over its operational lifetime. The role American women played in war production contradicted Nazi ideology at the most fundamental level. German doctrine explicitly declared that women belonged exclusively in domestic roles focused on children and household management. The very concept of women building weapons wasn't just considered impractical or inefficient, it represented racial and cultural degeneracy in Nazi thinking. Yet by mid-1942, American women were demonstrating extraordinary capabilities that contradicted these assumptions completely. At the Douglas Aircraft Plant in Long Beach, California, women comprised 40% of the workforce by 1943, achieving production efficiency rates that actually exceeded what pre-war male workers had accomplished through systematic training programs and improved manufacturing methods. The Richmond shipyards in California employed 90,000 workers at peak production, with women comprising 27% of the total workforce and 41% of welders specifically. These workers produced Liberty ships in average construction times of 45 days, with the SS Robert E. Peary completed in 4 days, 15 hours and 29 minutes in November 1942. German shipyards required 300 days for similar vessels. Women excelled particularly in precision operations that had previously been considered impossible for female workers to perform. At the Sperry Gyroscope Company, women assembled bomb sights requiring mechanical tolerances of 0.010 of an inch. Their steady hands and meticulous attention to detail actually exceeded quality standards previously achieved by experienced male craftsmen. Norma Jean Dougherty, who would later become famous as Marilyn Monroe, worked at the radioplane munitions factory from late 1944, inspecting parachutes and assembling target drones. She represented millions of women who entered factories without any industrial experience whatsoever, yet quickly mastered complex operations through systematic training. By August 1942, American production was achieving levels that made German defeat mathematically certain, regardless of battlefield tactics. Aircraft production approached 4,000 monthly, equaling Germany's entire quarterly output every single month. The United States was producing more military trucks every week than Germany managed to produce monthly. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey comprehensively documented the production disparity between nations. During 1942, America produced 47,836 aircraft versus Germany's 15,409. By 1944, American production reached 96,318 aircraft, while Germany managed 40,593 despite substantial efficiency improvements. Tank production showed similarly dramatic disparities. The Detroit Arsenal achieved production approaching 900 Sherman tanks monthly by December 1942. German tank production across all models averaged 500 monthly during 1942. America could replace battlefield losses faster than Germany could inflict them. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel experienced American material superiority firsthand during North African campaigns. His communications to Berlin throughout 1942 repeatedly emphasized the overwhelming quantities of equipment American forces deployed. He described facing unlimited ammunition supplies, constant air superiority, and endless replacement vehicles. German forces conserved every shell while Americans fired unlimited barrages. American logistics capabilities fundamentally transformed maritime warfare. Liberty ship production revolutionized cargo capacity. Women welders replaced traditional riveters, reducing construction time substantially. Components were mass-produced in multiple locations, then assembled at unprecedented speed. By May 1943, American shipyards were launching 3 Liberty ships daily on average, while German U-boats averaged sinking 1 every 3 days. Admiral Dönitz ultimately withdrew submarines from the Atlantic, conceding that American production capacity had decisively defeated the entire U-boat campaign. The Douglas Aircraft Plant in Santa Monica employed 44,000 workers across 3 shifts by 1943, producing 360 C-47 transport aircraft monthly, exceeding Germany's entire transport aircraft fleet. Women performed not just basic assembly operations, but actively suggested workflow improvements that increased efficiency. Their contributions increased output while simultaneously improving quality through systematic refinements to manufacturing processes. American aircraft production achieved mass production scale while maintaining standards previously associated with handcrafted construction. Every component underwent rigorous testing and inspection protocols. Rejection rates remained consistently lower than German facilities despite vastly higher production speeds. The Lockheed plant demonstrated that technologically advanced aircraft could be mass-produced effectively. The P-38 Lightning, among the era's most complex fighter designs, was assembled primarily by recently trained women workers who built sophisticated aircraft matching German quality standards while producing them in far greater quantities. The Detroit Arsenal began production in 1941 on 113 acres in Warren, Michigan. By late 1942, it was approaching 900 M4 Sherman tanks monthly, exceeding Germany's entire tank production across all models. Women operated massive hydraulic presses forming armor plates, precision lathes machining intricate components, and overhead cranes moving 30-ton turrets. They mastered welding torches for joining armor sections and quality control procedures ensuring battle-worthiness. German tank production faced fundamental limitations that American mass production overcame. The Tiger tank, while superior to the Sherman individually, required extensive hand-fitting of components. Germany produced 1,354 Tigers throughout the entire war. America produced 49,234 Shermans. Numerical superiority overwhelmed qualitative advantages consistently. General Heinz Guderian noted in his assessments that captured American tanks demonstrated remarkable mechanical reliability and complete parts interchangeability. Every Sherman tank used standardized interchangeable parts, while German tanks required model-specific components that couldn't be shared between different tank types. American mass production created maintainable weapons systems rather than just individual vehicles. The Rock Island Arsenal demonstrated American production scaling capabilities. From 500 rifles monthly in 1940, production reached 5,000 M1 Garand rifles daily by 1943, with women comprising over half the workforce. Women operated multiple milling machines simultaneously, producing components with minimal rejection rates. Their precision consistently exceeded military specifications while maintaining unprecedented production speeds. American soldiers carried semi-automatic M1 Garands, providing vastly superior firepower compared to bolt-action rifles. German soldiers continued using Mauser bolt-action rifles, essentially unchanged from World War I designs. The firepower disparity multiplied when calculated across entire armies. Ammunition production demonstrated similar advantages. The Lake City ammunition plant, staffed predominantly by women, produced 60 million cartridges weekly by 1943, exceeding Germany's monthly production totals. Aluminum production revealed the resource gap dramatically. Germany produced 250,000 tons annually in 1942, straining every available resource. America produced 920,000 tons with substantial expansion capacity remaining. Alcoa's Tennessee facilities, powered by Tennessee Valley Authority hydroelectric dams, employed women operating electric furnaces consuming enormous amounts of electrical power. Each furnace produced sufficient aluminum daily for constructing multiple aircraft. German aluminum shortages forced increasing use of steel and wood in aircraft construction, adding weight and reducing performance characteristics. American aircraft used aluminum extensively, improving range, speed, and payload capacity, advantages that translated directly into combat superiority. American mass production achieved quality levels exceeding traditional European craftsmanship through statistical quality control methods developed by Walter Schuhart and W. E. Deming. Consistency levels impossible to achieve with individual craftsmanship became routine through systematic processes. At Pratt & Whitney's Connecticut plant, women inspectors maintained quality standards exceeding German requirements. Every component underwent multiple inspection stages, ensuring complete interchangeability across all units. Packard Motor Company, building Rolls-Royce Merlin engines under license from Britain, actually improved British designs through production engineering innovations. American-built engines exceeded original specifications while being produced at rates the British considered impossible. American war production depended fundamentally on transportation networks moving materials with clockwork precision. Women played crucial roles throughout these networks, from railroad operations to logistics planning. Female railroad workers increased from 4,000 in 1940 to 104,000 by 1944. They operated switch yards, maintained tracks, and coordinated logistics operations moving millions of tons monthly. The Pennsylvania Railroad moved more freight daily than Germany's entire rail network. This efficiency meant American factories never stopped production awaiting material shipments. Raw materials flowed seamlessly to production facilities, while German factories frequently sat idle awaiting supplies despite operating across much shorter distances. American war production occurred alongside continued civilian prosperity, while Germany faced increasing civilian deprivation. Americans continued producing consumer goods throughout the war while simultaneously outproducing Germany militarily. Germany devoted 70% of total production to war efforts by 1943. American military spending never exceeded 40% of total production while achieving superior output. The difference was systematic productivity. American workers achieved output levels through continuous efficiency improvements. Time-motion studies, production refinements, and worker suggestions continuously improved efficiency beyond what coercion could achieve. Women working in shipyards revolutionized submarine construction. Women welders, whose smaller stature allowed them to work in restricted compartment spaces, actually increased construction speed substantially. American submarine production exceeded German U-boat construction by 1943. American submarines were larger, more capable, and better equipped than German counterparts. The vessels that devastated Japanese shipping throughout the Pacific were built by workers completely new to shipbuilding. Radar and electronics production showcased American manufacturing advantages over European production. At Raytheon, women assembled complex radar units in quantities Germany couldn't approach. American radar production reached thousands of units monthly by 1943. Every naval vessel, many aircraft, and numerous ground installations possessed radar equipment, while German forces possessed limited radar sets covering entire operational sectors. Western Electric, employing predominantly women workers, produced 100,000 military radios monthly by 1944. American forces enjoyed communication superiority at every organizational level, from squad radios to strategic command networks. The Holston Ordnance Works employed 40,000 workers, 70% of them women, producing RDX explosive compounds. They produced more high-explosive material during 1943 than Germany managed throughout the entire war. Safety procedures exceeded German standards despite handling extremely dangerous materials. Women achieved better safety records through systematic procedures and comprehensive training while handling materials German facilities considered too dangerous for female workers. American artillery units fired unlimited barrages while German guns carefully conserved shells. The production difference originated in plants where women produced explosives in such quantities that conservation became unnecessary. Penicillin production exemplified American production advantages. From enough antibiotic for 100 treatments in 1942, production reached sufficient quantities for 100,000 treatments monthly by 1944. German soldiers died from infections that American medics cured routinely. Surgical instrument production increased dramatically between 1941 and 1944. Women at Becton Dickinson and similar facilities produced medical supplies in quantities ensuring American wounded received treatment exceeding anything available in German field hospitals. Blood plasma production, organized through the Red Cross with predominantly female workers, saved countless lives. American wounded survived at unprecedented rates while German casualties faced constant medical supply shortages. When Japan captured Southeast Asian rubber plantations, America created synthetic rubber production infrastructure from nothing. By 1944, facilities operated primarily by women produced 737,000 tons annually versus Germany's 110,000 to 120,000 ton peak production. Chemical engineers developed manufacturing processes that actually improved synthetic rubber beyond natural rubber for specific applications. These innovations were shared industry-wide rather than hoarded competitively, multiplying advantages across all manufacturers. German vehicles failed from inadequate tire availability, while American vehicles operated continuously. The production difference meant spare tires by the millions versus German tire rationing limiting vehicle operations. The Quartermaster Corps documented that American forces became history's best-equipped military organization. Women in textile mills produced 100 million uniforms, 500 million pairs of socks, and 60 million boots. At parachute manufacturing facilities, women sewed with precision where accuracy literally meant survival. Each parachute required thousands of precise stitches, achieved with minimal rejection rates. German soldiers faced Russian winters wearing summer uniforms, while Americans received specialized clothing for every climate condition. The difference originated in textile mills, where women produced quantities making supply shortages impossible. Optical equipment production demonstrated systematic advantages compensating for experience differences. Bausch and Lomb's 9,000 workers, mostly women, outproduced Germany's entire optical industry, including prestigious companies like Zeiss and Leica combined. They produced binoculars, rangefinders, and bomb sights in unprecedented quantities. American forces possessed unlimited optical equipment, while German forces treasured individual pieces as irreplaceable. Material superiority at every organizational level originated where women exceeded traditional craftsmanship through systematic manufacturing methods. American vehicle reliability resulted directly from spare parts availability. Women at Delco Remy and similar facilities produced components numbering in the millions, including spark plugs, batteries, and generators, ensuring continuous vehicle operation. Every American vehicle carried spare parts German vehicles completely lacked. Preventive maintenance became routine operational procedure, while Germans cannibalized disabled vehicles for parts to keep others running. The difference multiplied operational readiness dramatically. American fuel production dwarfed German synthetic fuel efforts despite Germany's advanced chemistry. Women at Texas refineries produced 100-octane aviation fuel, providing significant performance advantages. German pilots operated with inferior fuel quality when fuel was available at all. American pilots trained without fuel constraints, while German pilot training became severely limited by fuel shortages. Experience differences originated in refineries where women produced unlimited, high-quality aviation fuel. Captured German documents revealed the profound psychological impact of facing American material superiority. Soldiers' letters described overwhelming equipment abundance that broke morale before battles even began. German propaganda couldn't explain production reality to troops experiencing it firsthand on battlefields. Every captured American position revealed abundance that completely contradicted everything propaganda had told them. Soldiers stopped believing official explanations after directly encountering American material superiority. Operation Overlord demonstrated production supremacy definitively. The invasion fleet's 5,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft were mostly produced during the previous 18 months by workers who were predominantly women. German defenders faced material superiority, making effective resistance mathematically futile. 20 American artillery shells for every single German shell. 50 American aircraft for every German plane. Regarding firepower, American divisions consumed 1,000 tons of supplies daily versus German daily allocations of 30 tons. The difference originated where women produced abundance, making sustained operations possible regardless of losses. While supplying European operations, America simultaneously fought across the Pacific with equal material superiority. Admiral Yamamoto had predicted 6 months of victories before American industrial strength would prevail. He significantly underestimated American capabilities. Essex-class carrier production exemplified manufacturing capacity. These 27,000-ton vessels were constructed in 20 months versus Japan's 4-year construction timeline. America built 24 such carriers. Japan managed constructing 6 throughout the entire war. Women at Newport News Shipbuilding built carriers using assembly line methods. Ships requiring individual craftsmanship elsewhere were mass-produced systematically in American yards. By 1944, American bomber production enabled 1,000 plane raids becoming routine operations. The 8th Air Force alone operated more 4-engine bombers than Germany's total wartime production across all bomber types. Women at Boeing, Consolidated, Douglas, and North American produced 96,318 aircraft during 1944. Germany managed 40,593 despite dramatic efficiency improvements. Air superiority's overwhelming arithmetic was manufactured by American women in factories across the nation. German intelligence services consistently underestimated American production totals because their analytical framework simply couldn't conceptualize women functioning as skilled industrial workers. Social assumptions prevented understanding actual reality. Post-war analysis reveals systematic rejection of accurate intelligence reports. Analysts typically reduced reported figures substantially, believing actual production levels were impossible to achieve with predominantly female workforces. Field commanders understood reality better from direct combat experience. By late 1944, fuel shortages immobilized German forces, while Americans consumed fuel abundantly without constraints. German tanks sat idle lacking fuel. American tanks operated continuously. Aircraft availability determined what operational possibilities even existed. American logistics systems delivered materials efficiently from factories to front lines globally. Women managed supply chains moving millions of tons monthly to precise destinations worldwide. Supply differences between forces were stark. American soldiers consumed 67 pounds of supplies daily versus German allocations of 4 pounds. Systematic production and distribution systems ensured nothing ever stopped for shortages. American replacement systems maintained unit strength continuously. Equipment losses were replaced immediately from production. Personnel losses filled rapidly from training pipelines. German units degraded progressively in strength, while American units actually strengthened. The training pipeline delivered replacement soldiers continuously. Units rebuilt immediately following combat operations, while German formations never recovered strength once depleted. The Battle of the Bulge revealed supply superiority starkly. Despite achieving tactical surprise, Americans remained better equipped than German attackers who had spent months preparing. American soldiers possessed complete winter equipment, while Germans improvised desperately. Production planning had anticipated requirements systematically. American artillery fired concentrated barrages, while German artillery conserved ammunition desperately. At ammunition plants staffed predominantly by women, America produced shells numbering in the millions, while Germany managed thousands. Communication equipment abundance enabled coordination levels impossible for German forces. Women produced military radios ensuring every unit possessed multiple communication sets, while Germans shared individual radios between units. American wounded survived at extraordinary rates through medical supplies produced abundantly. Plasma, pharmaceutical drugs, and surgical supplies were universally available, while German medical services faced constant critical shortages. The motorization difference fundamentally transformed warfare capabilities. America's 2.5-ton trucks, produced numbering 800,000 units, provided complete mobility, while German forces increasingly relied on deteriorating horse transport. Transport aircraft enabled sustained operations anywhere. Women at Douglas built 10,000 C-47 transport aircraft, transforming military logistics capabilities. Surrounded forces received supplies indefinitely, while German encirclements meant inevitable surrender. Combat engineers possessed equipment providing enormous operational advantages. Bulldozers and excavators produced by women enabled rapid construction, while Germans relied on hand tools and manual labor. Signals intelligence succeeded through calculating machines mass-produced by women enabling code-breaking operations. The Studebaker trucks mobilizing Soviet forces, the Liberty ships sustaining Britain, the aircraft equipping Allied air forces globally, all were produced predominantly by American women whose contribution proved absolutely decisive to Allied victory. American war production statistics remained staggering when totaled. 296,000 aircraft, 193,000 artillery pieces, 86,000 tanks, 2.6 million machine guns, 6 million tons of aircraft bombs, 434 million tons of steel, 2.6 million military trucks, 50 million tons of ammunition. Women comprised up to 65% of aircraft plant workforces, 40% in certain shipyards, 55% in ammunition plants. Their productivity exceeded every projection any planner had made. United States Strategic Bombing Survey interviews conducted with German military leadership revealed unanimous acknowledgement that American production capacity, particularly involving women workers, made victory mathematically impossible from 1943 onward. Field Marshal Kesselring stated flatly that American material superiority made tactical considerations essentially irrelevant. Colonel General Jodl testified that Germany fundamentally lost to industrial capacity rather than military defeat on battlefields. The catastrophic underestimation of American production capacity, especially regarding women's manufacturing capabilities, proved the single most fatal strategic miscalculation. The women who built victory transformed American society permanently. Having definitively proven equal capabilities, they refused returning to pre-war social limitations. Productivity methods they developed became foundations for post-war economic prosperity. Their individual contributions, like Rose Will Monroe at Willow Run, thousands at Douglas and Boeing facilities, welders at Richmond shipyards, combined creating the genuine arsenal of democracy. Each individual woman represented millions whose collective work proved historically decisive. American motivation and systematic methods achieved productivity levels that German coercion simply couldn't match. Women worked for victory, for wages, and for personal pride, achieving productivity through systematic training and continuous improvement that forced labor systems never approached. Production methods developed by women revolutionized global industrial practices permanently. Breaking complex manufacturing tasks into individually masterable steps originated where women proved traditional expertise was unnecessary for achieving quality production. American women's wartime role revolutionized society beyond anything legislation could have accomplished. Their practical contributions contrasted sharply with marginalized German women, demonstrating conclusively how pragmatic utilization of all available talent defeated rigid ideology restricting population participation. Mass production methods achieved quality levels exceeding traditional craftsmanship through systematic approaches. Women produced precision manufacturing that multiplied combat effectiveness through equipment reliability, presenting timeless lessons about human potential. German military planners fundamentally couldn't conceive that democratic systems would outproduce dictatorships, that women equaled men industrially, that freedom motivated workers better than coercion. Their ideological blindness to women's capabilities was symptomatic of broader failures, ensuring ultimate defeat. They measured American potential exclusively by German limitations, dismissing as impossible what became routine American achievement. American women proved conclusively that victory belongs to societies utilizing all talents regardless of gender restrictions. When German generals dismissed American women workers in 1940, they unknowingly sealed their own defeat. When those same women produced more military equipment than the entire Axis combined, ideology confronted devastating reality it couldn't explain or overcome. The final historical verdict was delivered by millions of American women who proved free societies mobilized for war produce overwhelming power that tyrannical systems simply cannot match regardless of coercion levels. They built victory one precision component at a time, establishing foundations for the post-war world order. Their legacy extends far beyond military victory to demonstrating definitively what becomes possible when necessity finally breaks artificial social barriers that limit human potential.